say that in no country did the Jews play such an important role as they did in pre-World War I Hungary. And in this comparison, I would include the United States and Canada today. The names like Rockefeller and Vanderbilt in Hungary would be Goldberger, Deutsch, and White. In no country did the Jews play such an important role. This rapid economic and social advance was accompanied by assimilation. The Jews of Hungary felt themselves to be totally Hungarian. Identifying themselves completely with the Hungarian nation and language, they adopted Hungarian names. So it was with my grandfather, a teacher. When he arrived in Budapest in 1905, he was told, if you want to teach in the capital city of Hungary, then you must have a Hungarian name. And that's how Marmorstein became Merey or Merey. My other grandfather arrived in Budapest a year later in 1906. He had become the general distributor for the Manor Confectionery Company of Vienna. He made a fabulous career and ended up at the Bürgerstadt, one of the highest taxpayers in Budapest. Truly, the period from 1867 to 1914 was the golden age of Hungarian Jewry. Alas, all this was to change. In 1920, the Hungarian parliament passed the numerus clausus law, whose intent was to limit Jewish university students. This was the first anti-Semitic law passed in post-World War I Europe. In rapid succession, starting in 1938, came three Jewish laws. Modeled after the Nuremberg laws, these laws restricted economic, professional, and social life of the Jewish population. As painful as these Jewish laws were, we Jews felt we could still manage. After all, first and foremost, we were Hungarians. As my great-uncle explained, if a mother spanks the child still loves the mother. By March 1944, the 750,000 Jews of Hungary were the last major Jewish population in Europe. In my childhood photograph album is a picture of Hanukkah, 1943. Despite restrictions, we were essentially leading normal lives, observing our holidays, having parties, taking photographs, etc. You would never have known that the Jews in the rest of Europe had by now perished, that the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, only 400 miles away, had been crushed almost a year before, that the Allies had already landed in Italy, and that the Russian army was moving westward and was now within 300 miles of the Hungarian border. It looked like somehow we, the Jews of Hungary, would have a different fate. We would somehow swim through the storm. This attitude suddenly changed when in the morning of March 19, 1944, our maid received a phone call from her husband that the German army was streaming into Hungary. Within a day, Hungary had changed from a German allied country to a German occupied country. The following day, March 20th, Adolf Eichmann entered Hungary. He was now a very experienced man. He had overseen the destruction of European Jewry, and it was now Hungary's turn. Only this time, he had to work very fast, as the German military situation was deteriorating rapidly. The Germans might lose the war to the Allies, but the war against the Jews had to be won. Immediately, Eichmann summoned the leaders of the Jewish community. In his usual style, he explained that if the Jewish community would cooperate and follow German orders, no harm would come to anyone. In a supreme example of denial and wishful thinking, the Jewish Council acquiesced and resigned itself to cooperation. This attitude of compliance was one that had worked well in bad times in Europe through the centuries. We cannot blame the Jewish Council. They tried to do their best in an impossible situation, and they used methods that had always worked. Why shouldn't they work now? Eichmann, of course, in record speed, set out on his work. He divided Hungary into 6 zones of deportation, leaving Budapest the capital to the end. Within the course of 7 weeks, from May 15th to July 8th, 1944, the entire Jewish population of provincial Hungary was deported to Auschwitz. What took place in Poland in 3.5 years now took place in 54 days. The methods had all been perfectly worked out. First, marking the Jews by making them wear a yellow star. This is the actual yellow star that my mother wore in the spring and summer of 1944. The second part of the scheme was ghettoization, where the Jews for several days or weeks awaited their fate in a brick factory near a railroad station. And finally came the last step, deportation by cattle car to Auschwitz. There were only 200 SS in all of Hungary. This deportation was accomplished completely by Hungarian surrogates. The entire Hungarian Internal Security Force was willingly and eagerly mobilized to accomplish this one goal: the total deportation of Hungarian Jewry. On the day of deportation, the Jewish population was forced into cattle cars, where the trip, lasting an average of 4 days, was one of unspeakable horror. 200 persons were crammed into one cattle car without food, water, or sanitary facilities. Upon arrival in Auschwitz, the Jews were lined up and inspected by the notorious Dr. Mengele, who decided if an individual was fit to work and sent to the right, or unfit to work and sent to the left. Those that survived the selection would ask the next day where their spouses and children were. They were told to look at the smoke coming up from over there. That's where your family is. As a final humiliation, the victims were told to write their families that they were fine in their new home in Wałbrzych, a place that never existed. As the news of the provincial deportation filtered into Budapest, everyone agonized about what to do. My parents thought of hiding with a suburban piano maker, but were afraid that I, as a 4-year-old, would somehow give them away. There was one group, though, in Budapest who took a more active and resistant posture towards the Germans, and these were the Hungarian Zionists. For 2-3 years, they had been smuggling Slovak and Polish refugees into the relative safety of Hungary. They had supported Oskar Schindler and his workshop in Krakow. Among the Zionists was a lawyer by the name of Dr. Rudolf Kastner. Kastner was a man of great self-confidence, chutzpah, and the capacity to think outside the box. Eichmann, in May 1944, approached the Zionists, particularly Dr. Kastner, and proposed an incredible offer with these words: "I expect you know who I am. I was in charge of the actions in Germany and Poland and Czechoslovakia. Now it's Hungary's turn. I am prepared to sell you 1 million Jews. We want goods, though, not money. I go to Berlin the day after tomorrow, and I'll discuss the matter with our leaders. In the meantime, you must decide what kind of goods you can offer us."